Okay, let's take a look at this one. As you can see, we're going to write an essay because that tells us what we have to do. And I'm just going to write there as a reminder. It tells us what to do. We're going to analyze how. And remember, that is our thinking. It's telling us the thinking we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing an analysis. And in this one, we're going to be talking about the expectation is we're going to be thinking about how the author develops, let's see, Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones, her character and her motivation, two things throughout the passage. Okay, so how she develops, how the author develops the characters, who is Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones, her character and her motivation. So there are two things there throughout the passage. Alrighty. And of course, there's use the evidence from the passage to support your analysis. Now, one thing I like to do, whenever you see the word throughout, like right here, one of the things I like to do is to use a timeline or a line. So let me draw one right here to give you an idea of something I like to do. And because it says throughout the passage, I like to just go ahead and go from the beginning of the passage, make myself a note, to about the middle of the passage. And it won't be exact when we go through it, nearer to the end of the passage. So that gives me some marking points as I'm looking at the passage, from the beginning to the middle of the passage through the end, or throughout the passage. So that gives me some kind of to make sure I am looking throughout. I don't want to look at just things at the beginning of the passage because the essay says throughout the passage. So I have to make sure I look through the entire passage to meet the qualifications of the essay or the expectations of the essay. Now, I have to look for both character, and when I mark the passage, I may end up using a little C for character, and I have to look for motivation, so I may end up using a little M for motivation. So I'm just going to mark that here so that if I find a sentence when I read the passage that makes me think that's a character thing I want to note, I might put a little C next to it. And if it's a sentence or a statement or a phrase or a quote, or it's something that suggests that the author is developing her motivation, I'll put an M next to it. So I'm just going to make those notes here. So because there are two things, this is something that is very, very good to do. I'm going to use the top of this timeline for character. So I'm just going to write character on the top. And guess what I'm going to put on the bottom? That's right, motivation. So, as I'm reading the passage, if I find something that relates to development of character, I can write the statement right here. If I find something that relates to motivation, I can write the statement right there. If I find something else that relates to character, I can write it here. If I find something else that relates to motivation, wherever it occurs throughout the passage, I can write it. And if I set up my notes correctly, I can read through the passage and mark it. And then at the end, I will have everything I need to write about it in my essay. I'll be able to say that the author developed both the character and motivation throughout the passage in these ways. When looking at character, the author did this. When looking at motivation, the author did this. I'll be able to easily tell if there were any similarities or if there were any things that were developed at the same time or in the same ways because of how I've lined them up. But this will make a very, very nice way to organize the thinking for looking through the passage. So give that a try and see how that might work for you. But I know this is one way that works for me. Anytime I have to look at something throughout, drawing a line and marking beginning, middle, and end helps keep me on track when I have to look at how something develops through time or throughout or over a change. That works for me. So give it a try and see how you do on that one. See you on the next one.